Welcome. Thank you all for coming on behalf of Leland and the Cummings family. We thank you for coming here, and this is a privilege for us as Connection Point Church. My name is Joel Halpin, and I'm the pastor of this church. It's a privilege for us to host you this morning. We're going to begin with just a reading of the obituary. Milton Cummings died peacefully at his home in Plano, Texas, at the age of 64, after a long-fought battle with pancreatic cancer. Milton is survived by his wife, Leila Cummings, son, Eli McCart Cummings, daughter, London Susanna Cummings, mother, Beverly Cummings, brother, George Cummings, and sister, Alta Austin. He is preceded in death by his father, John Cummings. On October 4th, 1951, Milton was born to John and Beverly Cummings in Redding, California. He spent his childhood in Shipley, I hope I said that right, Rio del California. And by the time he entered high school, he had moved to Tracy, California, where he graduated 6 months early. Immediately afterwards, he joined the Navy. Milton graduated from the University of Maryland in 1977 with a bachelor's degree in accounting and worked as a CPA at Price Waterhouse and McClatchy News. He spent the last 20 years of his life working at Lytton and L3 Communications, where he was known as a man of many talents. He started in financial planning, then moved to enterprise resource planning implementation, material management, special projects, and lastly, he became the head of IT department. He was a wonderful family man, a loving and supportive husband, dedicated father, devoted son, and caring brother to his two siblings. His family and friends will always remember him as a complex person, a dreamer, and as London says, a superb father. Let us pray. Our loving Heavenly Father, as we meet you today to remember Milt Cummings, we ask you to be the God of all comfort and the God of all peace. Give us perspective as we ourselves face the reality of death, to grow in our perspective of the truth of life. We ask these things in the name of Jesus Christ. At this time, I'm going to invite Joey Williams to lead us all in singing Amazing Grace. You can find the words to Amazing Grace on the back of the program.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. We've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun. We've known its days to sing God's praise. Then when we first begun, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
A reading from Psalm 23. The The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burden me, then I am still and will hear the silence until you come and sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
The first time I stepped into the Cummings house was to get a family photo. My wife, of course, was Leela, and we came over there, and we got a great family photo. In fact, one of the things that you notice when you see Leela take a picture is that she captures the personality very well. And so when I was looking through the photos that she sent, I was just kind of caught off guard. I didn't know Milt personally, but I think that you can catch a lot of his personality just in the photos that I saw. And so I spent a couple of minutes, probably more than just a couple, talking with Leela, just learning about Milt over the past few weeks. And it sounds like I missed out by not knowing him personally. When Milt and Leela met, she was working at college at the bookstore in Brookhaven. And he would come in and buy books, she told me, and give him, or he would give her good advice. And eventually, she said, eventually after coming in and he would buy these textbooks from the bookstore, eventually though, after he got her phone number, all of a sudden he lost interest in actually buying the books, and he quit buying the books. They would go on picnics together, but he didn't like to waste time. And it wasn't wasting time on a picnic, but if she was late, that would really, really stick with Milt. One of the favorite details that I heard as I was talking with her, that was one of the most fun details I think I've heard in any story, was that Milt actually lied to Leela about his age. And for quite a while, apparently, he had convinced her that he was actually 10 years younger than he was. And I'm actually not going to tell you the revelation of how they found out. It was very, very fascinating. You might get it from Leela if you talk with her after this. But eventually, he came clean. And all I'll say is he came clean, it sounds like, just in the nick of time before, because she had just figured it out. And so it was a fascinating story. Throughout the rest of this service, you're going to hear from several people who knew Milton better than me. And I'm excited to learn more about him as well. But I do want you to take just a moment in this celebration as we kind of transition into a celebration of his life. But I do, before we hear from others, I'd like us to take just a moment to consider our own mortality. There's something very, I think, respectful about considering our own mortality whenever we celebrate the life of someone who's passed. In John 14, 1-4, Jesus says, "Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, I would not have told you that I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to myself, so that where I am, you may also be. And you know the way to where I'm going." Now, some of the disciples did not understand what Jesus was saying, and they asked, "Well, we don't know the way to where you're going." And Jesus replied, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." So today, just as the life of Milton brought many of you joy, his passing could bring us peace. For today, if we resolve to trust Jesus, to forgive our sins, we can know the peace of eternity. We can know the promise of heaven. And so I urge us all here to give purposeful thought to this day by trusting in Jesus Christ. Let's pray. Lord, teach us to number our days. Teach us to be thankful for the memories that you have given us without forsaking eternity before us. Comfort us today and draw us closer to you on this day of remembrance. Amen. At this time, I'm going to invite Jeff Hansen to the stage to talk a little about Milton.
We gather today to share memories of and from Milt. Before I start, though, I'd like to introduce myself for the audience. I'm a friend of Milt's. We met a few years ago at a gymnastics camp. Courtney, my wife, and Lila were friendly, as both our daughters, London and Julia, were teammates on the same gymnastics team. They were attending the Bella Caroli gymnastics camp. If you don't know much about gymnastics, Bella Caroli is a legend in the sport, and it was very exciting for the girls and the parents to have our children attend that camp. Anyways, on the last day of the camp, all the parents come on in, they see the end of camp presentation by the athletes, what they've learned, some of the skills they've learned, and then the parents pick up the children and leave. And Leila and London were going to stay, and there was a very well-known, at least in Texas, water park called Schlitterbahn. They wanted to go there, and given that Texas summer is really hot, cool down a little bit. However, Milt did not want to attend. It wasn't really something he was into. So I think Leila and Courtney talked and arranged to have Milt drive home with us. We were going to head straight back home. Camp's in Huntsville, which is about 3 hours to home here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So there is some apprehension. I had not met Milt up to that point. So to have someone you don't know in the car for 3 hours could or could not work out very well, depending on how the conversation went. However, great ending to our first meeting, though. We spent the whole time talking. We were laughing most of the time on the way home. All of us, Courtney and myself, and Milt, talking and enjoying each other. From that day on, we were friends. When the term stage 4 is used, we all know that there's no stage 5. Modern medicine can No more to stop the clock than we can stop the sun. When we begin the trip to the undiscovered country from which no traveler ever returns, we have the chance to affirm our lives by the way we die. Milt died as he lived, filled with a quiet zest and zeal for his family, and for the permanent things by which he lived. In our friendship, I always appreciated his willingness to share knowledge with myself and others. Milt was a mentor to many people. I am sure that all of those who knew Milt took away some piece of knowledge that they could use in their life. College students he interfaced with often took away a lot of information and knowledge from him. Colleagues and friends. I'm sure everybody here today who knew Milt did take away something from him and will apply it in your own lives. Sometimes that knowledge, however, was not what not to do. Milt lived a long, fruitful life, and like we all do as we get older, we recognize our mistakes, and was willing to pass those along to all of us in the hopes that we would not repeat them. Often we would meet just down the road in Plano at Vickery Park or Fillmore Pub to have a beer and a conversation. We would discuss lots of different things. As we saw, or we heard earlier, Milt had a long, distinguished business career, so we like to talk about investment ideas and the general state of the world, etc. We figured we would be able to solve all the world's problems eventually, so we never lacked subject matter for our discussions. I recall from our conversations how so many people were impacted from knowing Milt. I mentioned earlier some of those impacts on colleagues and college students he was mentoring. But also he had a significant impact on others suffering from pancreatic cancer as well, via social media. I know he had started some websites or Facebook pages and LinkedIn pages to reach out and develop a community around those who are battling it, to give each other strength, and I know that impacted a lot of people's lives as well, for the good. Milt was a very strong man. He battled something that is foreign to most of us. Most of us here today can only sympathize with the pain and suffering he and his family endured. I came to know some degree that pain that Milt and his family had to go through and the impact on the family as well. Milt persevered through this battle for many years for his wife and children. He told me that often. Because Milt was so strong, I was able to meet him, and my life has been enriched forever. I'm evidence of that strength. While we are saddened by his death, we are made whole and better by his memories. We are not now that strength which in old days moved heaven and earth. That which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by tomb and fate, but strong in will, to survive, to seek, to find, and to not yield.
Kent Nakamoto.
Good morning. My name is Kent. I certainly want to thank everyone for being here today. I stand here before you to give my tribute to Milton Cummings, who certainly after he got to know you just preferred to be called Milt. I was very fortunate to have been called Milt's friend. Certainly in the beginning, our friendship wasn't easy to obtain. Milt was very busy in his life at that time, having very little time to have fun, and certainly he was dealing with some personal issues at that time. Shortly though, he emerged from the situation, met Leela, married Leela, witnessed the birth of his beautiful daughter, London, and became my endearing, caring friend over the last 2 decades. Milt, as some of you already know, was very witty, caring, and loyal. While possessing a very high intellect, which a lot of you know. He was very bright, which gave him the ability to excel in each of those traits. I was proud to have called, excuse me, I was proud to have called Milton my friend. With that said, again, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. I'm thinking that you would really like that. And certainly letting me share my little tribute to Milt. We certainly will miss Milton Cummings, but certainly we'll celebrate his life today for remembrance for who he was. Thank you.
I invite Lois Mendoza.
So let me introduce myself. I'm Lois, his favorite cousin. I'm the only cousin here, so. And I kind of liked it. He was a storyteller, and then he was trying to get away with being 10 years younger, because that would have made me 10 years younger, but I'm almost his age. I'm actually his brother's age, George. But I'm here because back in our day, most of you are younger than me, back in our day, I used to go up to Milton's house, and we lived 8 hours away. So let me set the setting for Milton. He lived up on the northern coast near Eureka, California, and there was a beautiful ocean, like 5 minutes away, but they lived on a huge river in Shively, California, and in Rio Dale, California. And I knew Milton the best when he was in his first 16 years of life, and he had some adventures. So I'm going to bring that piece of it. It's his childhood. As others said, he had a lot of wit, he had a lot of courage, he was quite a character, and he was a little mischievous. Well, maybe a lot mischievous. So I call this on my paper, The Adventures of Milt Before 16 Years Old, because that was really my age where I was with him. He lived 8 hours away, and back in our day, we went by car. But he lived way up in the Redwoods, beautiful country up where he lived. So they got out and they did a lot of adventures up there. One of the things that he loved, though, was water. And maybe that's where our spirits, we've always been connected on some level, very close on some levels, and yet we were always miles apart. I really only got to know him more in the last 5 years, so it's been a short amount of time. You catch my love? Back in the day, we loved water. So let me tell you some adventures. There was a lake. So George, I was talking to him. By the way, his family couldn't be here, but I spent last weekend with his family. And I called Leela and I said, so all I can tell you is we got together a lot of adventures. But they were just like, he was mischievous. And these are some of them his brother was telling me about. There was a highway that goes right up California. It's 101. On one side is the ocean and the sand, and on one side is a fresh lake. It's called Freshwater Lagoon. So every weekend, George said, they went out and they water skied every weekend. And in one of the pictures that you saw up on the slides, he's taken off on a ski from the shore. Well, there was a reason for that. Because when they took off from the shore, George says, if you fell, there were leeches in the water. And so they were like trying to get out as fast as they could. But he said they water skied every year. On the other side of the ocean on the other side of the road was the ocean and the sand. And I remember spending the summer with him one year, and we got round pieces of plywood, and we'd go out skimboarding. So the water would come in and the water would go out, and you'd throw the board down and you'd jump on it and you'd sail as far as you could. We spent many hours doing that. And George says they used to go out and pick up shells and agates and all sorts of stuff. They found a lot of things. A favorite place for all of us was in Brownsville, California, which was about 2 hours from me, so 6 hours from them. And I live in Sacramento, California. That's where I grew up. And so we would get together up at my grandpa's place. We'd ride tractors. But there was this Frenchtown bridge that had a creek that ran through it. And I was talking to George last night, and he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, there was this one place, huge rock on one side, huge bank on the other, and a little hole. that was really deep, and he was such a daredevil. Milton was a character. He was the only one who'd get up and he'd dive into this little hole. I told you, it's amazing that he lived through that. He was a nut. We used to skimboard. They used to, so he created a new meaning for clubbing. They're walking down the creek one day, and he tells, so his guy friends and George, and they're probably in their early teens. They're running down this creek, or down the river. I think, no, it was a creek. And so he looks down, he goes, everybody get a club. And they're like, what? He goes, everybody pick up a club. And so they all picked up a club, and in this shallow spot, he goes, look, there was a steelhead fish, and it was like this long, George said. And he goes, everyone start clubbing it. So they were all clubbing this fish, and when they killed it, they picked it up and ran home as fast as they could, because you're not supposed to be having fish without a fishing license, right? And so his mom told me last weekend, she says, they walked in the house with this huge fish and said, here, cook this, Mom. And she says, I never asked where they found that fish. Another thing that he liked to do was go to the Scotia Lumber Mill, which was up near Eureka, California, where he lived. His grandparents lived there. And it was a big lumber mill, and they had a huge pond, and they had lots of logs. Well, you're not even supposed to be out there around those logs. But George says they used to go out and they used to climb the logs, and in the pond they used to run on the logs, do all the things that they weren't supposed to do. So he had quite the childhood, and he loved being up there. One of the memories that the family shared with me that I wasn't around for, and maybe that was a good thing, was his BB gun. He loved his BB gun. And George told me last night he was kind of like the little boy in Christmas Carol. He always wanted this gun, and so he got a BB gun finally, and his mother, he went to go shoot it, the first time, and he couldn't get it to shoot, so he said, Mom, I can't get this to shoot. She goes, oh, let me try. No, let me do something. She unscrewed something, I don't know what it was. But she was unscrewing it, and it shot her in the palm of the hand. That was one. There's 5 in the family, right? And he's the one with the BB gun. George got a new BB gun, and he goes, hey, George, can I see your gun? And George says, sure, you can see it. So he picks it up and he aims it down, and George says, he shot me right in the thumbnail. So there was 2. And the third one was his sister. He was so wittingly said, Alta, go set up my cans for me so I can do a target shoot. But she became the target. And he shot her in the shoulder. So the dad was the only one who escaped his BB gun experiences. I can't help but say this. George said one time, so they went through 2 major floods in 55. How old are we, right? And 64 major floods where they lost their home and they lost everything. But George said after the floods they moved to Hydesville, which was a little bit north of that. And then they decided to move to Crescent City. So they were moving around quite a bit during that time. They said Milton decided not to go. He really wanted to graduate 8th grade there. And he goes, it actually gave Alta and I a little reprieve. Because he used to pick on them. One time I'm telling stories. One time he decided, Leela wanted me to tell you this. One time hey guys, you want to go up to the attic? Let's go play in the attic. And so he gets down the ladder and he talks Alta into going, and he talks George into going, and then he locked it. Until his mom and dad came home. Oh, he was such a character. So I told you about that. One of his best memories, though, he and George, his brother, who's my age, talked on the phone for the last 5 years, 2 years, every week. And George told me last night, he said, nothing was off limits. And if you know Milton, you know that he's a very deep person, that he's very witty, but he's very intellectual, and he just enjoyed the talk with his brother. So he would let Milton call him when he felt like it, but it was every week for a couple of years. And George said one of his favorite memories, Milton said, one of my favorite memories as a child was back at the lumber mill, Scotia Lumber Mill, every Christmas, as little guys, little people, they got to go to the movie theater there, and they had jars of Butterballs and jars of ribbon candy, and they gave you a little jar, and you got to take as much as you wanted of them, and then they gave you a present, a Christmas present that went with your age. So these were just little guys, and then you got to go and watch the movie. And he said out of all his childhood, that was his favorite memory. My favorite memory with him was going to spend the summers with them, and when he would come spend the summers with us, and we'd swim, and we would just, because we both loved water so much, we would swim, and I would go skimboarding with him. So those are my memories with him as a little guy up until about 16. And like I said, I didn't get to know him really until he was in the last 5-6 years, when my Uncle Johnny died, and they came up, then I got reacquainted with him, and I've spent some time talking and visiting with him since. So that's my cousin. I'm his favorite cousin, and I love you, Milton, and we'll miss you.
Let's now, I'd like to invite Milt's son, Eli, to come and share a few words.
Hello, I'm Eli, and I definitely want to thank everybody for being here. I know it would mean a lot to my dad. I bonded with my dad through music, through long winding drives down country roads. For as long as I can remember, the weekend ride has been a part of my life, and for as long as I can remember too. My dad telling me stories of a shiny red convertible we had when I was just a young boy. In American missives, the car has come to represent freedom, a vessel that can let one escape their day-to-day life and head into a world full of possibilities and adventure. For my father and I, though, there was also a different type of freedom. It was the freedom of conversation, of laughter and delightful dialogue that jumped from topic to topic. It was the freedom of living in the now, of letting all our worries and cares dissolve until there was nothing left but warmth and understanding. These drives were where I gained a deeper knowledge of myself and the man that is my father. His musings on the latest book he'd read on Einstein or Tesla are what sparked my interest in science. His tales of growing up in California are what made the ocean and nature feel so alive. And it was our shared love of music that provided a soundtrack for all these experiences. He introduced me to the sounds he grew up with, and I loved finding some obscure, not played on the radio song by The Doors or Steppenwolf that he hadn't heard for 10, 20, maybe 30 years to play on our next ride. It was because these songs, they usually came into memory. Sometimes the memory was shared, but more often it was just a smile on my father's face as he remembered some time from his past. And that was good enough for me. One of my favorite authors once wrote, "What is that feeling when you're driving away from people and they recede on the plane till you see their specks dispersing? It's the two huge worlds vaulting us, and it's goodbye. But we lean forward to the next crazy venture beneath the skies." And it's taken me a good portion of my life, but I now understand this passage, this feeling. The world will continue to turn, but on weekends, I will still go for rides. And when I find myself on some road I've never traveled, or in some town I've never known, it'll no longer be goodbye, because I'll always see my father smile.
Now I invite Milt's daughter, London.
I wanted to thank you all for all coming here. And I loved my dad, and I will still and always will. He was an intellectual masterpiece, a role model, and most significant to my mind, an outstanding dad that you can't just find anywhere. You can make the most superlative memories with him, because I surely have. We have done so many things together. The simplest ones, at times, were the best. We sometimes sat at the bedside, and he would just tell stories when I was little. And we laughed at other stories, and we did. We just sat there, and we did. He had spoken to me about his great adventures, and how he loved to climb mountains and hurdle train to train. But when he got cancer, he was unable to do his daredevil acts. Instead, we did other things like go on road trips. It felt wonderful going on those rides, listening to music. The wind blew against our face, and we would jam out to incredible music. Sometimes we'd bring Marty, our chocolate Labrador retriever, with us, and we would go to a place in Oklahoma with a beautiful lake. We would hang out there all day. We would make stops along the way of the trips, which made it superior and unforgettable. My dad loved riding, driving around, and looking at the stock market. Soon later, he was not able to do it. He could not really use the mouse for a computer either, so I did it for him, and he taught me about the things I ended up doing for him later on. I learned how to do many things from him. He also told me the best websites for his cars that he loved to see, and his houses, the dream houses that we could never buy. He enjoyed it so much. When we got tired of the houses and cars at night, we would go to sleep. Then, I think it was a habit of him to wake me up at 3:30 a.m. and watch SpongeBob SquarePants together. It was not one of my favorite shows, but he still loved it. It was a regular thing for him. My mom would get so mad when I'd be in the living room watching that show. He drove me to school every morning until he couldn't. It was his favorite thing to do in the morning. He'd love it more than anything else. And then we'd frequently go to a racetrack, a gas station he was hooked on. There was a Coke Slurpee there, and he just loved that. The little memories always counted more than the bigger ones, because those are the times we cherish the most. Although the big ones do mean a lot, the little ones we can always cherish more. My dad's personality changed all the time. The one thing was, he always had a good April Fool's Day. He loved to play jokes on both of us. This year I missed his joke, but it was okay. I get to play a good one on my mom. I missed him always. You cannot just replace the memories again. You can't just do it over. You can't just say those 3 words to him, to that person anymore. It seemed like he just vanished. It seems like it just disappeared. But you can always say the words to him. He's not truly gone. He just took up his physical appearance away from us, but not his soul or his memories. We still have him in our thoughts, in our past, and maybe even the future. I think about my dad day and night. There's no stopping my thoughts and memories from seeing him again. The one thing I want him to know is that he never failed as a dad, husband, friend, cousin, son, and a brother. Like I said, the littlest thing brightened up our day. And the thing that brightened mine was when my mom asked, "If you can hear me, blink." He made a little blink to let us know. When he was calling his brother, for the first words he said were, "Hi, George," and then he almost fell out of his bed. It made us feel so great for the littlest things. I'm happy now that he does not have to suffer or feel the pains of cancer anymore. He does not have to go get needles stuck in his chest every week for chemo. He is revealed from pain now. He feels happy and free. Now in the heavens, he can do all things he wanted to do. He can go climb mountains and cruise along boats. He can do anything now. He's home again.
I don't think it's a leap of statement to say how proud Milt must have been of Eli in London. I'd like to conclude by reading a letter sent from his oncologist, Dr. Eric Nadler. I wanted to write a note of remembrance of my friend and patient, Milt Cummings. The loss of my friend has been a challenging one to accept. Milt was truly a Renaissance man. He had a graduate-level understanding of theology, business, finance, and literature. He wrote some of the most beautiful and profound poetry that I had ever had the pleasure to read. All of this was surprising because just when you thought he could not possibly explore one realm of knowledge or inquiry, he proved that he had mastered it already. Towards the last few months, he decided it was complex mathematics that he wanted to explore again. Since I too love to read and explore different avenues of learning, this was a passion or topic that we both enjoyed to expand on. However, I never met anyone with his thirst for knowledge or intellectual curiosity. He was perpetually excited about new projects all the time. It was delightful and marvelous to see someone with such a motor to continue to push the boundaries of his full knowledge. For Milt, it was fun, and it kept life exciting. I imagine that he began this exploration in his youth, but I only knew him towards the end of his life, for the past 3 or 4 years. In some ways, that makes our interaction the more exceptional. Usually when faced with terminal illness, people shut down. Shut down was not a part of Milt's vocabulary. He started companies, drafted prospectus, traveled, read, learned, loved. He used each and every second that he felt well enough to pursue those endeavors, and it meant something to him. It was all too sad for the last few months when he could not be hyper-productive. And I think that loss of productivity almost killed him as much as the cancer. Milt was often accompanied by his wife and her daughter, but sometimes it was just the two of us. When we were alone, it was all the more clear how much he loved his family. Although he loved to read and work and day trade and study, he loved spending time with his children, his wife, and his extended family. It meant a great deal to him when he had vacations with his son. It meant a great deal to him when he was able to visit California and his relatives were there. And it really meant a great deal to him to pick up his daughter from school and do homework with her. He loved the little things, and they too drove him through his therapy. On a personal note, I really, really miss him. We shared a number of traits, but we had similar personalities as well, including our quirks. We both could be flippant at times, but deeply sensitive at other times. More often than not, our dreams or goals got behind our ability to complete them. Whether it was a TV show we wanted to write, or it was him being cured of cancer. In some ways, I think our desire to achieve these goals were some of the reasons that Milt lived for 4 years with a disease that still on average has a survival in the U.S. of only 11 months. He had things to do, people to love, family to care for, new friends, and I'm honored to include myself, to meet, math to learn, poetry to write, and companies and investment strategies to form. Dying wasn't allowed to get in the way, and it was able to push aside better than most. He was able to push it aside better than most. I deal with death every day. It happens all the time in the world of an oncologist. And truthfully, I remember and grieve for all my patients. That being said, I'll miss my weekly visits with my friend, and the past month has not been as fulfilling without Milt in my life. I know that he's in a better place. I know that he is meeting with new people up there and starting businesses and asking past Nobel Prize winners about their research and writing things for his family to read when they join him. And I am looking forward to see what he has done when I get there to visit with him later. It was always exciting to see what he was doing next. Thankfully, that remains. On behalf of my wife and our church, it's been an honor to minister to you today as a family, and I truly thank you all for being here today to celebrate the life of Milton Cummings. I'm going to conclude with a prayer, and then we'll be dismissed, but the celebration of his life will continue. So let's pray. Lord, we thank you today for being able to share the memories of Milton Cummings. And Lord, today I pray that this has also impacted us as we consider our lives as well, and the lives and the value that we are living in. So Lord, I pray that today you'll provide comfort and peace for this family and friends that are here today, that are mourning and feeling the pain of Milt's loss. Lord, we look to you to encourage our spirits in these times. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. The Lord give us strength unto his people, and may he bless his people with grace. Thank you. You are dismissed.